Barbara Wright and Ian Chesterton, two humble teachers during 1963, are surprised by a bright student named Susan Foreman. Confused by the contradictions in Susan's knowledge, Barbara had decided to visit her home, only to learn that the address on record is a junkyard. She and Ian decide to wait at the location until Susan or her grandfather show up. There, they discover a junkyard inhabited by her grandfather, simply known as the Doctor, and he doesn't want them lurking about. When the teachers refuse to leave, they discover that an ordinary police box is actually bigger on the inside. The Doctor decides they know too much about his and Susan's otherworldly origins and takes them on a journey across space and time in his TARDIS, the place he and Susan now call home. Welcome, friends and companions! This is your host, Enigmatic Joker. Yes, this is the first televised story of Doctor Who, called On Unearthly Child. 4 episodes. Yes, the first story. William Hartnell. So there's this very interesting story. Yeah, because it's the first. Um, as usual, we do some analysis and we dive into some things. So first, some general info. Then we dive into the plot every episode. Then I will name some cast members, do some world building, some interesting story notes, and in the end, do some continuity. Because every story and episode in the Doctor Who universe has some connection to each other, to relate to some extent to each other, linked and referencing to each other. So, first of all, um, this this story is adapted from the pilot episode, because there was first some pilots, and then it was adapted into An Unearthly Child. The companions in the story are Susan Foreman, Ian Chesterton, and Barbara Wright. And the main setting is, of course, November 1963 and Earth circa 1000 years BC. The premiere broadcast was on 23rd of November 1963. That starts the televised episodes of Doctor Who. Yes, and I was very enthusiastic about that. It's still on screen. Yes. Yeah, I'm a very passionate and dedicated Whovian. Yeah, I do this live stream because I love the Doctor. That's why I do this live stream. So, let's go then for some general info. An Unearthly Child was the first serial of season 1 of Doctor Who. It was the first televised Doctor Who serial and the beginning of the Doctor Who franchise in general. It saw the first appearances of the Doctor, Susan Foreman, Ian Chesterton, and Barbara Wright, played by William Hartnell, Carol and Ford, William Russell, and Jacqueline Hill, respectively. Ian and Barbara became the Doctor's first companions, unwillingly whisked away on the Doctor's TARDIS. At the end of the 4th episode, The Firemaker, the jungles of the recurring alien world of Scarrow, not named in the story, by the way, were briefly seen before its full appearance in the following serial. This adventure also introduced the Doctor Stardust, which, in spite of it usually possessing the ability to change its outward appearance, having already previously disguised as an ionic column and as a sedan chair, was stuck in its most recognizable form of a police box after leaving London in 1963. And still, it is a police box. Yes, a police box who travels through time and space. Yes, and has his mind of its own. Sometimes we see that. So, we now dive into the plot, episode by episode. So, let's go then. So, on a foggy London night, a policeman makes his rounds, passing I am Foreman's junkyard at $76 Lane. In the junkyard stands an incongruous looking police box emitting an eerie hum. Another day of classes ends at the Coal Hill School. History teacher Barbara Wright and science teacher Ian Chesterton compare notes on an enigmatic student, Susan Foreman. Enigmatic? Hey, yeah, enigmatic joker. I'm your host. Enigmatic, yes. Actually, yeah, well, Doctor Who universe is enigmatic. So, yeah. So, her knowledge of history and science surpasses the rest of the class and possibly the teachers. However, she has a very curious gaps about present day culture. For example, she forgets that the UK has yet to adopt the decimal currency. Barbara has encouraged her to specialize in history, but Susan is resistant to her suggestion about in home tutoring, saying her grandfather, with whom she lives, doesn't like strangers. Barbara tells Ian she got Susan's address, 76 Lane, from the school secretary. She went there and found not a house, but a junkyard. They found Susan to Barbara can lend her book on the French Revolution. Ian offers Susan a ride, but she declines. Ian and Barbara resolve to follow her home. After they leave the room, Susan reads the history book and remarks, "That's not right." Yeah, she knows because she was there one time. Arriving by car at the 76 Stoddard Lane, Ian and Barbara see Susan enter the junkyard alone. Following from a distance, they search the junkyard for her in vain. Ian is transfixed by a police box there which hums. Touching it, he exclaims that it's alive. They hear someone come and hide. An old man approaches the police box and unlocks it. The teacher seems to hear Susan's voice from inside, greeting him. They confront the old man, who brusquely shuts the door and refuses to acknowledge that anyone is inside the box. When they threaten to go to the police, the old man calmly dismisses their claims. The door opens from the inside. Hearing Susan's voice again, the teachers push past the man. They are astounded to find themselves in a much larger space with futuristic electronic panels and a central hexagonal control console. Susan is shocked to find her teachers there. The old man, her grandfather, is furious at their untimely intrusion. Susan and her grandfather, who calls himself simply the Doctor, say the police box is actually a disguise for their space-time ship, the TARDIS. They are alien refugees from another planet and time. Despite Susan's protests, the Doctor prepares the TARDIS for takeoff, saying he must kidnap Ian and Barbara to protect Susan and himself. The sudden takeoff renders the two school teachers unconscious. The TARDIS arrives on a Paleolithic landscape over which falls the shadow of a man. End of episode 1. And by the way, episode 1 is called Unearthly Child, and also the story is called Unearthly Child. Episode 2 has its own name. It is very characteristic from the early era of Doctor Who. The second episode in the story on an Earthly Child is called The Cave of Skulls. So, the shadow of a man dressed in animal skins. The shadows of a man dressed in animal skins, and so he watches the TARDIS ominously. A tribe of cavemen is gathered around one of their members, Sa. Sa is the son of the tribe's previous leader, who never taught his son the secret of making fire. As Sa futilely tries to make fire, a female tribe elder throws scorn on Za's abilities, states that Kal, a stranger from another tribe, will be a far better leader. This frustrates Za. Her, a young cave woman, tries to pacify him, but also warns him that if he loses his position as leader of the tribe, he will lose her. Her father is intent on her bearing children for the leader. Back at the TARDIS, Ian and Barbara regain consciousness to find Doctor and Susan puzzled over readings displayed on the TARDIS main console. The Doctor tells them they have gone back in time. This annoys Ian, who demands concrete proof. The Doctor opens the door, revealing the barren desert, and all four go outside. The Doctor professes confusion as to why the TARDIS has retained the shape of a police box. Ian apologizes to Susan and Barbara for stubbornly disbelieving the Doctor's story. Susan is also surprised that the TARDIS is still in the shape of a police box. The Doctor is elsewhere looking for samples of rocks and plans to estimate the current date when a caveman who was watching the TARDIS sneaks up on him and attacks him. His three companions hear him shout and run to his rescue. When they get there, all they find is the Doctor's bag, head and Geiger counter smashed. Susan hysterically runs off to look for him. Ian and Barbara soon follow, but not before Ian finds the sand is freezing cold. Her's father tells Sa that Kyle claims he knew how to make fire in his old tribe. Sa angrily responds that Kyle's tribe all died out. Kyle would have died too if this tribe had not saved him. Her again warns him. Kyle was bringing in meat and winning favor amongst the tribe. Za says if he has to kill a few people to exert his authority, he will. At this point, Kyle, who attacked the Doctor, comes in with the old man's unconscious body. Kyle tells the tribe that he saw the old man come out of a strange tree, and fire came out of his fingers. And he should be the leader of the tribe now, as well as saying the old man had immense strength and fighting powers. So Za scorns and mocks Kyle, but Hork states that Kyle is doing far more for the tribe than Za, and if his captive can create fire, Kyle should be made the leader. Za says the old man should be taken to the Cave of Skulls and sacrificed, so Orb will return. At this point, the Doctor wakes up. He says he can create fire for the whole tribe without any need for killing, but he soon realizes he has lost his matches. when he tells the tribe he will need to go back to the TARDIS before they get fire. Sam mocks Kyle, saying his promise of an old man who can make fire was lies. The tribe turns against Cal. In his frustration, he pulls his knife on the doctor. Cal's on the verge of killing him when Susan, Barbara, and Ian attack the tribe, knocking Cal off the doctor. The companions are soon overpowered. Cal approaches Barbara, and before he can kill her, Zah gets in the way and says the four must be taken to the Cave of Skulls and sacrificed as a gift to Orb. The doctor and his companions are led away. Orch tries to take her from Zah, but Zah insists that with the doctor's sacrifice, Orb will return and fire will return also. The tribe will retain Zah as the leader. Orch seems to accept this. The four travelers are sealed in the tribe's Cave of Skulls, with the bones of many prisoners, where Ian notices that the skulls have all been split open. End of episode 2. Episode 3. Still in the Cave of Skulls, Ian, Barbara, and Susan try to escape. However, the doctor seems disconsolate and unhelpful. Ian reprimands him, prompting the doctor to suggest that they use the bones of the dead to cut the ropes that bind their hands and legs. The group begins to unify. Back at the main cave, the tribe is asleep. The female elder wakes up. She steals Zah's knife and heads towards the Cave of Skulls. Unbeknownst to the old woman, her has seen her. When she arrives at the Cave of Skulls, she is met by a large stone that blocks the door. However, she seems to know an alternate route. Inside the Cave of Skulls, the doctor and the others are trying to free Ian so he can defend them if needed. Susan screams at the elder pushed through a gap in the undergrowth that blocks the cave. Her wakes Zah and calls him out of the cave to inform him that the elder took his knife and headed out of the cave. They decide she went to the Cave of Skulls. Her believes the elder is afraid of fire, so she will kill the four to prevent the tribe from learning the secret. However, the elder is using the knife to free the four, whilst outside, Zah and her try to move the stone. Just as the stone budges, the four escape out the back of the cave. Zah, frustrated, throws the elder to the floor. Her convinces Zah that the only way he will retain the tribe's leadership is by capturing the doctor and harnessing the fire. Zah and her plunge into the forest in pursuit of the doctor. The four are lost in the forest, trying to find their way back to the TARDIS. Yet again, Ian and the doctor fall out as Ian takes the lead. Whilst they argue, Barbara trips and falls. She lands on a dead boar and screams which alerts Zah and her. The movement of the undergrowth impels the doctor and his companions to hide. While Zah and her catch up with them, Zah is attacked by a wild beast and is injured badly. Against the doctor's wishes, Barbara and Ian try to help Zah. The doctor tries to stop Susan from going, insinuating that he would have leave Ian and Barbara behind. Ian and Barbara help Zah, much to her bemusement. She does not understand the idea of friendship and is openly hostile to Susan, thinking she's trying to steal Zah from her. The doctor picks up a stone and makes for Zah, but Ian stops him. The doctor claims he was going to get Zah to draw a map with a stone showing the way to the TARDIS. The doctor reminds his companions that the tribe elder is still with the cavemen. He worries she may wake them and set off in pursuit of the travelers. Ian builds a makeshift stretcher to carry Zah back to the TARDIS to heal him there. Back at the settlement, Cal has returned to the cave and to find it empty. He questions the prostrate elder who says she set the doctor and his companions free. Cal kills her. Um, he returns to the tribe to inform them that it was Za who let the doctor free so he could keep fire to himself. The tribe are skeptical and Cal says the elder will back him up. When Cal returns to the cave to discover the dead elder, he says it must have been Za who killed her. And Cal declares himself leader and takes his new tribe off to find Za. Perfect. The doctor and his companions happily find the TARDIS. However, their escape attempt is foiled when they see the tribesmen appear. They turn to flee, but they find the way blocked by Cal and the other tribesmen. End of part 3. The last one is called The Firemaker. The four travelers are returned to the encampment. At first, the tribe is hostile to Za and his friends, especially when they accuse him of killing the tribal elder. But the doctor convinces the tribe that Kyle killed Old Mother by tricking Kyle into showing the tribe his bloody knife. The doctor and Ian lead the tribe in an attack which drives Kyle into the desert, into the forest. So the recovered Azar is again declared leader, but instead of expressing his gratitude by freeing the travelers as the doctor expected, he orders them returned to the Cave of Skulls, where he will either learn the secret of fire from them or sacrifice them to Orb. In the Cave of Skulls, Ian makes fire for Za, using friction for a spark, hoping this gift will convince the tribe to set them free. Za comes to speak with them and is entranced by the fire. Ian says that in his tribe, all members know how to make fire. Za asks Ian if he is the leader of his tribe. He responds with a nod to Susan that the doctor is the leader. Yes, of course, the doctor is the leader. Always, always, always. So, meanwhile, Cal sneaks back into the camp. He kills the guard outside the cave and attacks Sa. Cal sees the fire and immediately slashes at Sa with his axe. Sa grabs a thick branch to defend himself and breaks Cal's axe with it. Finally, Za gains the upper hand, chokes Cal in a headlock, and knocks him to the cave floor. Za picks up a big stone, while Barbara turns her head away, knowing that Za intends to do will be too gruesome to watch. As Cal's neck is being strained, Susan looks away in horror. Za smashes the stone on Cal's head with a skull-crushing blow, killing Cal and confirming his leadership. The doctor is visibly disturbed by this barbaric action. With fire at his disposal, Za is now undisputed. However, he still leaves the doctor and his companions to languish in the cave. After going out hunting, Za agrees that the travelers will merge with his tribe rather than leave and orders them confined to the cave indefinitely. Meanwhile, the four try to think of a means of escape. Absent-mindedly, Susan places a skull in a flame. This leads Ian to devise a plan to scare and distract the tribe enough to let them flee. Four skulls are placed on top of burning torches. This ghoulish vision distracts the cave dwellers, allowing the travelers to escape into the forest. But when one of the skull torches collapses, Za realizes he had been tricked and the tribesmen set off in pursuit. This time, the four travelers manage to make it back inside the TARDIS. The doctor just about enters before the tribesmen catch up with them. As the tribesmen throw spears at the TARDIS, It dematerializes, leaving them staring in amazement. Sa, however, looks on in defeat. The doctor explains to Ian and Barbara that he cannot take them back to 1963 because he has no idea where or when they will end up next. The TARDIS is not displaying any data to help them direct the ship. In time, the scanner shows their new destination. A mysterious jungle with strange looking trees. Before they go out to explore the planet, the doctor asks Susan to check the radiation levels. They are at the normal level. As the four leave the console room to clean themselves up, the radiation detector's needle starts to move, passes into the zone, marked danger, and the warning light starts flashing. That is the beginning of the next story, the Daleks. But that's for another live stream. That's for a live stream in the past, in the present, or in the future. Timeless. So I will name the cast members. So Doctor Who the first Doctor is played by William Hartnell. Ian Chesterton is played by William Rostel. Barbara Wright is played by Jacqueline Hill. Susan Foreman is played by Carol Ann Ford. Sa is played by Derek Newark. Her is played by Alethea Charlton. Old Mother is played by Eileen Way. Cal is played by Jeremy Young. And Hork is played by Howard Lang. Some world building. In astronomical objects, space and time are said by Susan to be related with regard to dimensions. Another thing is that with devices, Ian uses a torch while in the junkyard, and the Doctor uses a lighting device to open the TARDIS. Some devices. So the Doctor, in the context of world building, Doctor smokes a pipe. Yeah. The Doctor carries a notebook with him, and the Doctor has a caracal hat for traveling, also known as an astrakhan. He wears it in other stories as well, some stories. Some world building in technology. Yeah. The Doctor refers to television to help describe how the TARDIS is bigger on the inside. Susan says the TARDIS has been an iconic column and a seated chair in the past. So some sort of comedian circuit. And the Doctor finds it disturbing when the chameleon circus of the TARDIS becomes stuck in the shape of a police box, by the way. Another thing in technology is that Susan claims to have devised the acronym Time and Relative Dimension in Space for the space-time vessel used by herself and her grandfather. In another time, we see that instead of time and relative dimension in space is time and relative dimensions in space. So dimensions. Sorry. So actually, the acronym is explained. TARDIS, time and by Susan, time and relative dimension in space. In other cases, in other stories, dimensions, but yeah, whatever. Dimension. Another thing is that the TARDIS has a Eurometer. Another thing is that the Doctor finds it disturbing that the already mentioned is that the chameleon circuit to the TARDIS is in the shape of a police box. It stays it many times. As of today, it's still a police box. blue police box. Another thing is that Ian asks for antiseptic, and Ian owns a car which he drives to 76 Lane in the story, in the beginning. Some thing in science, world building science, that Ian tells her to fetch water, and in the individuals, the school secretary gives Barbara Susan's address. Some world building. Some interesting story notes. This is the first Doctor Who episode broadcast on television and in any medium. The very first words in Doctor Who are the first words in Doctor Who were "Good night, Miss Wright." Another thing is that all episodes exist as 16mm still recorders and are held in the BBC's film and videotape library. Another thing is that also there was a trailer for this story. That a trailer was filmed for this story. Okay. Another thing about the TARDIS is that the makers of the show originally considered the idea of having a functioning chameleon circuit, but ruled it out on cost grounds, feeling it would have been too expensive to build a new disguised spaceship for every story. At one point, they also considered making the TARDIS invisible. This episode establishes that the TARDIS had only recently taken on the police box appearance, except for brief moments in the TV story Attack of the Cybermen. That's what the Sixth Doctor, Colin Baker, and the name of Doctor 11th Doctor Matt Smith, and a few other stories. The ship will only ever be shown as a police box. Another thing is that the bones in the cave of skulls are real bones taken from an abattoir and were very unpleasant to smell under hot studio lights. Yeah, working conditions not always very good. A pilot version of an unearthly child was made and exists in various versions for more. Yeah, actually, there are some. You can on some DVDs you have the other versions of an unearthly child. The televised one was the definitive one. The difference is versions see another sort of doctor in his characteristics mainly. So there was some. They did some. Yeah, and actually searched for the good characteristics. Another thing is that the doctor smokes a pipe in the Cave of Skulls, but is never seen to do so again after he loses both his this and his matches on Stone Age Earth when he's attacked and kidnapped by Cal. So in this story, Susan claims that she made up the term TARDIS from the initials of time and relative dimension space. It is later revealed that Gallifreyan society is several millions years old. One explanation for this apparent inconsistency is proposed in the novel Lungbarrow, and other speculative explanations also exist. When the TARDIS dematerializes for the first time, both Ian and Barbara faint. This effect is unique to this story, as Ian and Barbara show no further ill effects in subsequent dematerializations, at least not of this nature and not caused directly by the TARDIS activating, nor do any future new TARDIS passengers until 2005 BBC Wales revival. Courtney Woods and Mason Bennett are both sick after their first trips in the Caretaker and Before the Flood, respectively. That is in 12th Doctor era met Peter Capaldi. So, due to the original airing being overshadowed by news of John F. Kennedy assassination the previous day on Wednesday, 27th November, the program review board decided to repeat an Unearthly Child immediately before the Cave of Skulls. This repeat was, which was not shown on BBC One Northern Ireland, gained a significant number of viewers, 6 million. And although such replays are common today, particularly on American networks, such a rerun was almost unheard of in 1963. It was a really good accomplishment, by the way. Yeah. Mhm. Okay. Um, let's go. Um, Ian and Barbara's relationship was originally much more overtly romantic for the plans for the story, but it was toned down by David Whittaker. Um, and Susan in the story is reading a book titled The French Revolution, and in the final serial of the season, The Reign of Terror, the travelers actually go to the revolutionary France. On the what way about thing in the call on the official Doctor Who website, the individual page of each episode of this serial credit William Hartnell as the Doctor instead of his on-screen credit of Doctor Who, the Dr. Who. So there's more things about it. In the beginning, it was called Doctor Who, and later it is the Doctor. But in originally it was an on-screen credit Doctor Who, Dr. Who. Um, and that's that was some interesting notes. Yeah, I think it's good for that. Um, um, let's do some continuity. Yeah, that was the plan. because every story and episode in Doctor Who universe is done to some extent related to each other, influencing each other, linked to each other, references to each other. So, and for most of all is some interpretation. Everyone has his own interpretation of continuity, but here are some things. First of all, the Doctor tells Ian and Barbara that he and Susan are cut off from their own planet. We see that audio story beginning. Second thing is that shortly before reporting 1963, the Doctor had arranged with a local undertaker to have the hand of Omega buried in Shoreditch Cemetery. And that is linked to TV story Remembrance of the Daleks with the seventh Doctor, Sylvester McCoy. After defeating Woden on 20th of July 1966 in TV story The War Machines, and that is with the first Doctor, William Hartnell. That's with Polly, by the way, and called Ben. So he turned to check that it had been buried as per his instructions, only to discover that it had been removed. He determined that his future self would arrive at an earlier point in order to deal with it. As he in prose the Wreck and Bone Men's story. Third thing is that in 1903, after receiving a wealth of information from the future, Gregory Rasputin foresaw Ian and Barbara's first meeting with the Doctor in Daughter's Lane in 1963. He had in audio The Wanderer. A fourth thing is that before the Doctor and Susan settled down in Shoreditch in 1963, they took a brief trip to St. Albans on 17 December 1997 to assure that the United Kingdom would remain safe during and after the 1960s. Unbeknownst to either of them, the fourth Doctor and his companions, Romana the second and K9, were in the vicinity on the same day. In the prose, The Little Things. Another thing is that later in this incarnation, the Doctor returned to 76 Torres Lane in the company of Stephen Taylor in 1966, shortly before meeting his new companion Oliver Harper in the audio The Perpetual Bond. He later did so again in 1963 during both his fourth and seventh incarnations in prose Those Left Behind and TV story Remnants of the Daleks. In 1985, during his sixth incarnation, to Colin Baker in TV story Attack of the Cybermen. By 2021, Torres Lane was a commercially zoned area of Shoreditch, which was mostly made up of office blocks. A car park had been built on the former location of the junkyard in the audio story The Harvest. The events of this story are passed down as a trickster myth. We see it in prose The Cabinet of Light. Another thing in continuity is that different sources give different lengths for the Doctor and Susan's stay in 1960s London. Susan says in this story that the last 5 months have been the happiest of my life. And this is supported by comic Operation Proteus, set in October, which their arrival was detected 4 months ago. However, in prose Matrix, the Doctor says that for 6 months it was perfect. Prose, the Wreck and Bone Men's story, states that the Doctor had been paying rent for the last 9 months. And in prose, Time and Relative, Susan says in a March journal entry that they have been in 1963 for 5 months, making their total stay 13 months. So that's for the record. What the case is, whatever, 1963 is the time. 1963. On 23rd November 1963, the fourth Doctor and K9 Mark II returned to Torres Lane to retrieve S. Rex insect, which he had been tracking that he had been tracking the day that he left. Well, there they met Debbie, Susan's best friend from Coal Hill School, and Debbie, who turned 15 the day was concerned about Susan's sudden disappearance, as she knew that Susan would never miss her birthday. She had met the first doctor on one occasion, but the fourth doctor did not recall seeing her before. He also did not remember Susan ever mentioning Debbie, but admitted that he was not always the best listener. He told Debbie that Susan decided to stay on 22nd century Earth, but then amended this by adding that he chose for her, expressing the hope that this decision was for the best. Debbie was thankful that she met the doctor, as while she knew that she would never see Susan again, she could at least live her life safe in the knowledge that she was safe in the future rather than spend it wondering what happened to Susan and fearing the worst. And that's a link to Proust, Those Left Behind. Another thing is that after arriving in the past, the Doctor is puzzled over why the TARDIS is still a police box. The 11th Doctor traveled back to 1963 and sabotaged the Chameleon Circuit shortly before this. That's linked to comic Hunters of the Burning Stone. So it's the 11th Doctor plays with the Chameleon Circuit. So the 11th Doctor hears various voices from his past when a time rift from the past leaks into the TARDIS. One of those voices is Susan saying, I made up the name TARDIS from the initials time and relative dimension in space. Another voice is Ian asking, a thing that looks like a police box standing in a junkyard, it can move anywhere in time and space? That's in the TV story Journey to the Center of the TARDIS. Interesting interesting TV story, by the way. One of the key stories in Doctor Who. Another thing is that during this story, the first Doctor is seen lifting a rock, preparing to murder a caveman who is slowing down the group. He then later, seemingly without explanation, puts it down. One account states that after losing his memories during an incident with the Bruce Master, the Eighth Doctor Paul McGann visited the Fifth Doctor to regain some of his past memories. His presence was stated as being the reason behind the First Doctor's change of heart, linked to Pro's The Eight Doctors. Another account given by the Doctor himself states that it was, in fact, Ian who had persuaded him not to do so. And there's a link to Audio de Sontarans. Another thing is that Susan had John Smith and the Common Man album aboard the TARDIS. The first Doctor did not like it much, but he came to enjoy the group's music by the time of his fifth incarnation. See that link to Audio 1963 Fanfare for the Common Man. Another thing is that the Doctor states, fear makes companions of all of us. This is a sentiment subconsciously given to him as a child by Clara Oswald in the barn where he sometimes slept. Is in the TV story Listen in the 12th Doctor era with Peter Capaldi. And the last thing in continuity is that whilst trapped in the cave of skulls and preparing to trick the cavemen into believing they have become fire demons, Barbara tells the brothers Grimm tale of Godfather's death. The Doctor in his eighth incarnation would later tell the same story to Brian the Ood, and again to Rose in his ninth. Is in link to Proust, the Knight, the Fool, and the Dead. And that's, my friends and companions, is all I have to say about this story, this amazing first story of Doctor Who. So, If you want to contact me, you can contact me by sending a message in Discord. Type my username Enigmatic Joker and you can contact me. You can also, of course, put your comments under the videos, and that's also a way to chat with me. So I hope you enjoyed this live stream. I hope to see you next time. For now, bye bye and enjoy Doctor Who.